All right, so Donte Divincenzo goes down with a major injury for the Minnesota Timberwolves, is out indefinitely due to a big toe injury, and will receive an additional opinion, is what Shams is reporting. He's been placed in a boot, and he was averaging 17, almost 5 assists and 42% from three starting the last 6 games. The Timberwolves had gone to benching Mike Conley and starting Donte Divincenzo, which had been a good move. It's a move that had been, I think, clearly beneficial for this Timberwolves team as of late. Conley's had a rough year. He's just showing signs of age. It's not really his fault, but at this point, he's not the player he once was. And a guy like Donte Divincenzo, Archer wants to say hi, a guy like Donte Divincenzo is a real contributor and has been a very important piece, especially lately, for this Timberwolves team. I mean, this is a guy who is a high-level scorer, can put the ball on the floor and be a shot creator for himself and for others, efficient shooter, and a versatile, good defender, like useful all-around player, one of the better players on the Timberwolves, in all honesty. And this is a team that, again, has question marks about depth in the first place. So first of all, this, if you're looking for a positive for the Timberwolves, this should open up playing time and opportunity for Rob Dillingham. That, I think, would be the biggest positive of this trade, is that it opens up playing time for Rob Dillingham. But the biggest concern with this trade is this is a team that clearly hasn't been great this year. They've underperformed as a whole. Expectations, I think, have been were much higher entering the season than what they've actually performed as. And for a team that already is mediocre, I mean, we look at the standings. Archer, again, he has a lot of energy today, wants to play. But if we look at the standings, they're 8th in the West. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They've been pretty much healthy for the majority of that. They're just not a great team. They're not an atrocious team, but they're not a special team. They don't look like the team that was building something really special last season before they traded karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, making the conference finals, 2 games away from the NBA finals, a series that, while I think they did get outplayed by the Mavs, they had a chance to win. Like, that was a pretty competitive series, and they were really not far away from the finals. This is a team that I think going into the season, you were like, who are the main contenders this year? OKC, Dallas, and Minnesota, I think, going into the year would have been your main contending teams, in all likelihood in the West. 8th in the West, while they haven't suffered serious injury for the most part for most of their team this year, isn't where you expect to be. And for a team that is so reliant on three-point shooting as well, they've become a very three-point shooting reliant team. We look at shooting stats for this year, they're at 38.4% from three, which is really good, 3rd best in the league. And they shoot, what, 8th most three-pointers in basketball, 7th most three-pointers in basketball. They're a very reliant on the three team, and they're a very efficient three-point shooting team as well. The concern is you are now losing in Donte Divincenzo, one of the best shooters on the team, and he hasn't even shot the ball that well for the season. I mean, for much of the season, he struggled. He's up to 37% now on 7 attempts a game. That's probably your 2nd most proficient shooter after Anthony Edwards as a whole. I mean, Nickeil Alexander-Walker's had a good year. Julius Randle's been okay. Jaden McDaniels hasn't been good for most of the year, but has shot the ball better as of late. Mike Conley has been atrocious inside the arc, but from the three-point line hasn't been bad. Almost 5 attempts a game at 37.5%. Rob Dillingham hasn't played a ton, but when he has, he's shot the three ball well. Like, they have a lot of good shooting on this team, and that's the thing that is encouraging. I mean, even Naz Reid, 40% three-point shooter on 5 attempts a game this year. They have a lot of shooting, which is nice. But when you're losing your 2nd highest volume shooter and a guy who's been shooting the ball at such an efficient level since entering the starting lineup, that's going to hurt a team that is already so reliant on that three-point shooting. It's going to create, I think, a little bit less space for Anthony Edwards to operate offensively because he doesn't have a secondary high-level scoring guard next to him. That's been one of the values of Divincenzo, especially lately for the Timberwolves. It's going to put even more of an offensive load on guys like Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle and players like that. And while those guys are capable to elite scorers, I mean, Ant is absolutely elite. Julius Randle can be inconsistent, but is capable. Those guys both have flaws to their game in that they turn the ball over too much. They're not elite level decision makers. I mean, both of them, 4.3 to 3.3 assist to turnover ratio for Ant has gone backwards this year. I've talked about that in multiple videos. It's not good. Julius Randle, same story, 4.5 assists to 3 turnovers a game. Neither of those guys are efficient playmakers, and they're going to have to be tasked with doing even more of that this season. Whereas Divincenzo, 3.6 to 1.8 isn't amazing, but recently he's been averaging 5 assists a game since entering the starting lineup, like that Shams tweet said, and he is a more efficient playmaker than Ant and Randle have been. So taking away one of your better playmakers on the team is going to up the stress even more on guys who have already struggled as playmakers this year, if that makes sense. And that's a real concern for a Timberwolves team that just isn't the same. You know what I mean? This year, they're going to be under even more duress and stress offensively, and defensively, they're not going to be quite the same either. I mean, their defensive rating is 7th in basketball at 110.5, but I think Donte Divincenzo is a good part of that. Like, he's a legitimately capable, solid perimeter defender. And then their offensive rating, while not great, is 15th in basketball. Wouldn't be shocked to see that drop a little bit more over this next section of games. And again, this is a team that does not have a lot of defined depth. We look at minutes per game this season. It's Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They have 7 real rotation guys outside of Donte Divincenzo. And with Conley's significant struggles this season, I don't think you want him all of a sudden having to play 30 plus minutes a game when he just hasn't been the same player this year. And so, yes, that will open up an opportunity for a guy like Rob Dillingham. Maybe it opens the door for a player like Josh Mino or Terrence Shannon Jr. to step up and get more minutes as well. If it was me, I would give that opportunity to Terrence Shannon. I know he hasn't shot the 3 amazingly, but it's been very low volume, and as a whole, he's a very athletic player. I think he's a good finisher. He's been great in the G League. And I loved him at Illinois. My cousin played basketball at Illinois at the same time that Terrence Shannon was at Illinois. So I was a big fan of Terrence then, and I think he's a very talented player. And I feel like he provides athleticism. And I mean, he's 24. He's not a rook. Like he is a rookie, but he's not a inexperienced player. I think he could come in and be a legit contributor. That's the guy that even more than Dillingham, that's the guy that I hope gets an opportunity through this injury with the Timberwolves. But really, either way, it's going to open up a playmaking opportunity for Rob Dillingham, which he is an electric playmaker. He has not been a perfect player as a rookie, but he's been 44% from 3 in very limited minutes. Yes, but also, I mean, the 1.8 to 1.1 turnover assist to turnover ratio isn't great, but you'd like to see him get the opportunity to run the offense a little bit more on a night-to-night basis, even if that is coming off the bench in a 6th man type role. He's probably going to see, for the first time in his career, consistent 18 to 22 minutes a game, especially with the lack of trust at this point in Conley long-term for the Timberwolves. It's going to be fascinating to see how he responds to an increased role. And so this could, in theory, wind up being a positive for the Timberwolves if guys like TSJ and Rob Dillingham are able to emerge into consistent role players for this Timberwolves team. But it could also very easily go poorly and be a situation where they're 22 and 20 right now. Let's say he misses a month, because they say indefinite, but it's a toe injury. Who really knows what that means? My guess is it's a month at least. You know what I'm saying? If he misses a month and they're all of a sudden going for a rough stretch and they all of a sudden are struggling, like, that's going to be really unfortunate for this Timberwolves team, because you look at their upcoming schedule. I mean, it's not easy. Memphis is tough. Dallas has been injured, but that's not going to be an easy game. Denver, tough. Atlanta, been really good. Phoenix, playing better as of late. Utah, Washington, those are easy games. But then Sacramento's been better as of late. Chicago continues to be more competitive than people expect. Houston's good. Portland's been more competitive recently with Scoot's impressive performance, although that's probably still a win. Cleveland, Milwaukee, OKC, Houston, OKC again. The Lakers, like, this stretch until the end of February is pretty tough. And if they can't play well in this stretch before getting Donte Divincenzo back, it could really put this team in a rough spot, leading towards trying to get a playoff berth. And this is not where they expected to be this season at all as a team. And I would be very concerned if I was a Timberwolves fan about the path at this point to attempting to contend this year. It just doesn't seem super realistic at this point. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. We'll see what happens. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.